Oh, it's so nice to sit with you. Finally, I've been enjoying your films for a while. Yeah, absolutely. I think actually I don't know why. I think it was in the your documentary, Stray Dog. I think I was supposed to sit with you. I don't remember what happened. It's been a few years now, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember very, very distinctly that I think it was all being set up, and I don't know what fell. Sometimes things fall through. But that was such an enjoyable film. I'm going to put this right in front.
Okay.
So we're equally.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello there.
Yeah, that was a terrific film, Stray Dog. I remember enjoying the. I think was it BAM Cinema Fest? I don't remember where it was. Anyway, I don't remember where the New York premiere was.
It was the New York Film Festival. It played up at the. That was in the autumn. I don't know. I think it played one time at BAM. I'm not sure, but
yeah, New York Film Festival. That's a pretty decent premiere.
That was great. But they have, they sort of have the documentary sidebar or whatever, So,
which they've really been developing over the last few years. And now, Leave No Trace, which is the film of the moment that we're talking about, your new film, and it's a narrative feature. Where did it have its world premiere?
It's Sundance, yes,
okay,
and then it was included in the Director's Fortnight in May, just last month.
At that one in France.
Yes.
Right, that little thing they do over there in the south of France. That one?
That one.
Congratulations. How was that?
Thank you. That was really wonderful to be in. The Fortnight has such diversity of film, like really from a lot of different countries, and a lot of techniques are used for their films that are very different than the industrial system.
Yes, and I just was talking to Ed Lockman, the cinematographer. I'm sure, just a couple of days ago, right down the block here, in fact. He has a loft only a few blocks away. Write it down. Write what down? Oh, no, I'm just, he's so on the ball, I should say.
Sorry.
So do you want a banana? Maybe you need some, it's all right.
I think I'll be all right. Yeah.
Okay.
The levels are fine. So
Oh, good,
I'm ready
okay.
to, look for anything else.
We started, I'm so bad at letting people know how casual it starts, but we did start.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyway, it's a very conversational type of show, just so you know.
All right.
But I get all that information in there. We get everybody to come to the theater and see Leave No Trace.
Wow, who can ask for more?
And starring Ben Foster and the Thomasin McKenzie in her first role. A very talented young actress.
She's been in films in her own country, in New Zealand. She's been
she's from New Zealand.
Yeah, she's from New Zealand, and she's been in a teen television drama, and also she'd been in a film. I think it's also. I think it was a film that maybe didn't come outside the country, but it was a very New Zealand story.
So she has some quite a bit of experience then, because she seemed too good not to. I mean, that would have been just odd, but possible.
Yeah. She wasn't cast off the street.
Okay, yeah. And did she have a voice, a dialect coach or something?
She had worked on her American accent on her own, and then she wanted to touch base like 3 points during the production. So a local in Portland, a coach worked with her, or she conferred. She had a couple words that were troublesome for her, and so she asked for a review. Sense.
Yeah. Right. It's hard. He's saying, how old is she? Like 15? I forget.
When we filmed with her, she is 16.
Okay, very good.
And she's sort of playing someone who's 14 or 15.
Right. I just had on, speaking of some of your past work, actually, I just I was at South by Southwest, and I talked to Vera Farmiga.
Oh.
She's nice little opportunity for the podcast, but what a great actor, right?
Yes.
She's in a new movie called with Christopher Plummer called Boundaries. And that film has a young actor in it named Louis McDougall. I'm just so happy I remembered his name, but he's did a remarkable performance as well. And he's Scottish. I mean, if you talk to him, it's like that whole, talking like us from Scotland,
Right.
But you wouldn't know it. Also, Boundaries, and it's with Vera, and he also completely convincing. But they see so many American films. So they're not like, it's not such a foreign.
And some kids are just really good at it, They just really are.
They have a good ear.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Leave No Trace, it was at Sundance, and now it's coming out in New York and LA, I believe, right? On June 29th.
Yes.
June 29th, good, I got it. And then I imagine wider after that. So if people are listening, keep checking, because this is a film you don't want to miss. And Ben Foster, he's the dad. He's a veteran. Obviously, some things have happened in his past. We're not sure exactly what. It's not really important that we know all those details, is it?
I don't think so. I think you're meeting him in the here and now. You have to piece together what you will make of him and her by meeting them like you would meet a stranger. Right.
But we're so used to getting so much information, provided to us pretty often. A lot of exposition. Yeah. Is that something that that appeals to you, the absence of that, and asking the audience to maybe work a little harder or just sort of be more open to a different way of getting their story, learning about the characters?
Yeah, all of the above. I think that having an audience, when I'm an audience member in other people's films, I like to use my brain and wonder why they're doing that. Oh, what's going to happen? They shouldn't have done that, and being concerned, involved, tracking them really carefully. I like that, that involvement. And I remember feeling very encouraged by audiences over the years who've said, I really favor a situation where A and B and C aren't sutured for me, where I'm putting that connection together. And so since I'm that kind of viewer as well, I wanted to be able to work like that, given that I'm not alone. Other people enjoy that involvement as well. And exposition for film can be very dreary. There's only a couple methods that in all the years of cinema, there aren't that many methods to convey past tense besides flashback or exposition. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to see how far I can go, trying to stay in the here and now and deliver a few things that people need to get a context and see if they can work with that.
Well, it's interesting because this was adapted from a novel, mm-hmm. correct? It was from Peter Rock. Mm-hmm. Is that the name of the author? Called My Abandonment?
Yes.
And you read the book, and I have not had that opportunity. It's very possible that all that was filled in. When you look, did you adapt it yourself? Or did you work with a screenwriter? Or
I worked with my producing partner Anne Rossellini. We do the adaptations together. And
oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, so that's pleasurable. We do first a very literal adaptation, try to put most of the contents of the novel into a screenplay form, mm-hmm. and then we marry that to what we find when we actually go researching. What part was so much of the author's imagination that we can't really find a relevant or related parallel, since we don't work with sets and whatnot. It's all found places and all found people, except those who we cast. So the story ends up being very influenced by how we marry what was in the novel and the work of imagination to the real environment. That's where the films kind of go from any genre of novel to social realism, through that translation.
Mm-hmm. Did you have influences around these type? Because it seems like these are very, very thought through types of approaches to filmmaking. Like you have certain almost theories around. Maybe you're not so locked into them, but it sounds like you're very thoughtful about these, deciding to use found spaces or to whatever it is. And I'm wondering, did you come from? I know you made one documentary, obviously. At least one. But did you work with documentary before, or were you really influenced by documentaries?
Both those, yes.
Again, everything yes. I'm saying.
The documentary practice is something I was schooled in and practiced, mm-hmm. and made my living doing more straightforward educational or instructional mm-hmm. films as a day job. And in those, you are brought to very many environments that you're assigned them basically, but it brings you into spaces and workplaces that you wouldn't necessarily get to go to as a civilian, and you meet a whole range of people that are doing things that you know nothing about, but you're able to take notes on their existence and how they perform their work, what it's like at their workplace. Mm-hmm. And so that's the wonderful empirical reconnaissance. And then, of course, what would be fiction in that job would be, what do they do after work? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And that's where I decided to sort of segue into fiction, because I wanted to be able to also film people after hours, not just in their workplace. And but the documentary practice, I like documentaries. I like the way that they can show a lot of ands, sometimes more and than narrative. That you can realize that someone who has combat experience is also someone who likes small dogs, and in addition to that, they like to cook a cake with power tools. And in addition to that, they are experiencing counseling for the first time, and they have a huge motorcycle, or, all these ands. And that happens in documentary, and that's how I ended up making the film with Stray Dog, because in his yard were 8 ands, Wow. He was headed off to the Vietnam Memorial, and he was in love with a woman from Mexico, and people were living in scrappy, small dwellings, and also having barbecue and playing some music and trying to get by and help each other a bit when they could. And so all these ands were delighting me, because usually we think,
each was like turning a corner where you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
In a way, which is really nice. Do you find one more liberating a style over the other when it comes to, or because you kind of just drew a pretty good similarity between Stray Dog and maybe this film, Leave No Trace, that in terms of the ands.
Yeah.
So maybe they're equally liberating once you allow yourself to.
Yeah, they're it's a dance between them. So, right now, as I'm working on a documentary, and
you are.
And the text I just got frustrated me. It's like, he's like, I kind of prefer not to do that scene after I talked about it, and if it was a fiction, I could just say, well, that's what we're doing. We're doing that scene, and. Mm-hmm. And I could have someone help me maybe secure the location, right? He's like, I don't think we can get the location. So with the documentary, there are all these vagaries that you can't command, right? You can't always dictate them. And there are many obstacles, and Murphy's Law plays out in fiction.
Sure, right.
But the fact is, you can at least attempt. You could say, well, at 9:00, I'd like to be on this particular street corner.
Yeah.
And I'd like the dog to be there, and I'd like the bicycle to be there,
Yeah.
And with the documentary, the person cannot show, the dog could be sick, the bike could not exist,
Right. Yeah. There's no replacement dog or what have you. I understand. So just to return to synopsis a little bit so people also get a grasp of the film. Relatively early on, and I think I can mention this because it is early on, the father and daughter are living in the woods outside of Portland in the Forest Park,
yes.
It's called. And they are, it's not, I don't know if it's illegal, but it's not legal.
Correct.
That they're living right out in the woods. And so they're brought in, and then, they have to go through this social service sort of process, right? To make sure everybody's okay, and that help make sure, it's interesting. I don't normally see, this is not normally how I see those people. Usually they're a little bit more two-dimensional, even if they're positive characters, but they're usually obstacle characters, and they're in the way, and they're making, and here they could kind of be considered a little bit that way, but I found them to be very compassionate and trying to help these people along, not to to separate them or something terrible like that, but to make sure that the daughter's okay, and that even there's Ben Foster's character, I wrote these little things down so I don't sound stupid, Will, which is okay. And they hook them up then with like a place, to live and try to kind of bring them back into
the fold.
Yeah. But this guy, Ben, is not fold friendly.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right, because he made great efforts to leave the fold, and
right.
he had, he was feeling that he was managing that well, that he was at the top of his game, that's where he could be a meaningful instructor to his daughter and a meaningful guide. He felt a sense of self-worth being very central to her, but also being able to provide a lot of the basic needs.
Yeah,
in that as a forest dweller, if you will, And so when that's taken away or disrupted or upended, he has already known that he's not been someone who functions well. I guess maybe, I don't know what he was like before his combat experience, but since then, living with certain triggers and in certain environments, he already knows doesn't work.
Does Peter's novel go? I'm just curious, just for me, my sake, not necessarily people are listening, but I was just curious. Does the book go more into a little bit more into the backstory, a little bit more into his experiences in the services?
Not much.
Okay.
It's really alluded to at one point. You in Peter's book, you meet them very, very similarly.
Okay.
As the way I think he came across the article, which was based on a there was a sighting of this family. The Rangers had discovered them, and I think the only reason it was ever reported was because they were living quite a bit differently than other unhoused individuals in the sort of, it's a big issue in Portland and Seattle.
It is.
Unhoused people.
Oh, it is.
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Yeah, unhoused.
Yeah.
Do you use that term?
That's a
Is
term
that a
that
your term, or is
no,
that the
that's
term?
a term that's used there.
It is.
Yeah, because
As opposed to homeless.
yeah, I mean they use both, but unhoused really
But it's a
speaks to the idea
distinction.
that people are living
Yeah.
outside intense.
Intentionally as a choice, though. Not
No,
for the lack
I would
of other
say
choices.
no. I would say not all. I think it's a very small percentage by
Okay.
choice.
Okay.
I think it's usually through poverty.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I just thought
Yeah.
because you used the term unhoused, it almost just seems like it's a complex issue.
It is. It is.
In a way, we maybe take away a little bit of people's integrity or humanity by saying they're homeless. It's so stigmatized.
Yeah. No, and I don't mean to like somehow think, oh wow, it's just
Right.
whole cohort, whole swath of people that just would love to live outside in the rain. And no,
the
no.
cold.
Yeah,
Right.
that would really be misrepresenting the situation.
Sure.
There's a lot of a lot of psycho
Right. Mental illness
and financial
associated
issues
in some
that
cases.
very
Sure,
much
sure.
so, hugely.
Yeah, we have a big problem in this country. Yeah.
And Europe's having a really big problem too.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to say, like right
Yeah.
now, because of this period of mass migration, which is very common in the history of humankind, that means that there are just a lot of people that don't have roots now, don't have a village, don't have a place.
Right. People looking out for each other, quite so, with an infrastructure for that.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, that's a big topic to start to
that's a
talk
big
about.
topic, yeah.
But where did you grow up?
I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., Maryland.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Oh,
Yes.
so in Maryland. So fairly urban center area, not somewhere between Baltimore and Washington? Or-
Yeah, kind of on the other side.
Okay.
But had kin in Baltimore.
What's
but
that?
I have kin in I had kin, family in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, still do. But yes, so that was really the suburbs. Really, the suburbs. It was the part of the part of the Maryland, D.C. suburbs that were built came sprawling out, I guess, in the 60s and 70s, and it went pretty far.
Yeah.
By the time you ended up living in one of them, you weren't so. It was like the search for the town was kind of destined to be your next. Maybe a lifelong search. Like, where is the actual town? Where's the piazza? Where's the Zocalo? Where's the village itself? It wasn't there.
Downtown.
Well, downtown, but that was considered miles away. You couldn't saunter there. You couldn't just go there.
No,
you had to make great effort to go there.
Right. No, the burbs are in many cases lacking that center, that downtown center. Not entirely, but in a lot of cases. Was there film being played in your house? Was that?
I enjoyed going to films. It was very much a theater era. Of course, I did watch films on the television as well, but. Sure. I did enjoy going to films, but my actual real interest, like on an intellectual level, or getting to understand that there was this art form, that it wasn't just it wasn't only commercial entertainment, came really in college years.
Sure. Where was that?
And that was in Massachusetts, in Boston area.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few of them there.
And there's some, there was, and there was a really good number of art houses, so it was very easy to. Get introduced to film, but then go see them.
Yeah, the Brattle. I mean, if you're talking about actually in the Cambridge,
the Brattle, the Orson Welles before
the Orson
it burned.
Welles in Central Square, I think, right?
Yeah, and then later there was the Kendall, which is still existing. The Somerville Theater was revived, which was amazing.
Right. He's from Newton.
Yeah, so. And the Coolidge Corner was a big effort
right
to save.
That's right.
The Coolidge Corner. I took tickets to the Coolidge Corner.
Yeah.
Harvard
Do you
Film
remember
Archive.
The Nickelodeon? Which was Back Bay, Nickelodeon.
Yes, yeah.
It might be before your time, but it was this multiplex, Indie House multiplex on Beacon, I think it was, or it was one block behind Commonwealth, I remember.
That was exciting, and and then there was like the Film Archive, which was amazing. And
I don't know that one. Okay.
Harvard Film Archive was programmed like, it was open to the public. So it was right around the corner from the Brattle, so I took tickets there as well, and that was. A very wonderful film education between those cinemas and what I was learning in my own studies. I was really had a beautiful introduction to film.
When did you go to film school?
I
or-
did.
You did.
I did. I went on because after the undergraduate experience, I was working, in the video world, if you
So
will,
you got caught up. Yeah.
video production.
Okay.
But it was those very jobs I referred to where you learn about what people do in the day, but to sort of learn how to film people when it's off the documentary moment, I felt like I needed to go back to school. So I did go to film school in New York at NYU.
Yeah, I heard of that one.
And I was super lucky to have this
Yeah.
very influential mentor that he affected a lot of generations of NYU, a lot of classes, he was raised up in the Soviet Union, went to film school in Moscow,
Oh my gosh.
and was a real champion of Eastern European filmmaking. And he brought a lot of that knowledge and inspiration to New York students. So we really had a rare opportunity to learn, first and foremost, like our first language was not American film. It was European cinema or European film, social realism to some great extent.
Yep.
And really positive. Lucky. I felt very lucky to have crossed paths with him.
Yeah, I'm thinking of back to those, Czech films and, Russian films from the, 60s and 70s, and it's felt very much like documentary in a way. There was not. It felt very naturalistic.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
But most prominently, it was also frequently about the lives of everyday people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, sure.
And
yeah.
so therefore,
Yeah.
it
Did
was.
you discover Ken Loach?
I love Ken Loach. I learn. I don't always respond to everything the way the films are put together, but I really respond to a lot of the circumstances that are depicted, and then there's key moments in quite a few of the films which are like gems to me.
Yeah.
And I was so happy recently when last year, the year before, 2 years ago, being in the audience for when Daniel Blake was playing, and I loved that in the first, I think, 3 minutes, it's almost all in the dark. I think it's a black screen, and you hear the protagonist, Daniel, being interviewed by
some social service or
social
unemployment
service,
type of
disability.
disability.
Maybe, yeah.
Right.
And he answers just very straight up and very directly, but the questions are so absurd that Ken actually got this great laugh off of, it was so wonderful that this film that was going to be about hard-hitting issues, that the audience was started by appreciating. They were already with Daniel because the questions were so absurd.
Right.
They were laughing at how we endure the bureaucracies.
Yeah, I was thinking you were going to say he was just answered so naturally because it was relatively new. He'd been injured, right? And he lost his job, right? He because he hadn't had a time to get real defensive yet.
Right.
That comes later.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, he's probably still has hope of somehow getting work and finding work, et cetera.
That's true.
Because he's been working all his life. And
he's making the assumption that he will be treated decently.
Right. Well, that's a better way of putting it. True. There are some parallels. Then I can see now where Will, right, Ben Foster's character, how he why he exists. Does it create a I would say Ben Foster is somewhere between a leading man and a character actor. I think he flits between the two depending on the project. And but and he's sort of recognized. He's definitely recognized, but a lot of people may not know exactly who he is because he hasn't done big films as a lead actor. So you still have, you get a best. Maybe he did help bring some attention, some money to the film. I don't know, but he also can still fade into the story to a degree too, where he doesn't over. Yeah, and I had to imagine, and it was like in the. I'm like, how did you cast, Winter's Bone? Like, how do you find these people? Who were these people? Of course, you discovered now the biggest Hollywood star in the world. That you discovered her.
She existed.
She would have been discovered anyway, is that what you're going to say?
I think so.
Probably.
It may have been in a different kind of role, which would have led her down a different path. Her first role could have been as a vixen or a ingenue, very sexualized, or she could have been portrayed as dithering or silly or inconsequential or not in control of navigating. There was many ways that she could have been introduced to the world, and so I think it kind of mattered. I think the area where I think I have some influence is how someone might be introduced, such as Jennifer. Meaning that the role was really 360. You really got to see a lot of who her character was and how she could inhabit.
Well, she got very lucky with that project and that under your tutelage and had to have someone looking after her. And, because she was really well taken care of by that film. And what a incredibly strong role for such a young actor at the time, That had a big impact on a lot of people, that film. So I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, no, I have.
Oh, very good. He's very, very well seen a lot of
I've
these.
seen all of the Bone trilogy up until
The Bone trilogy?
the last one.
Oh,
the
right.
first was
Of
down
course.
to the bone. Yeah.
Of course. He's a step ahead of me.
The third one. Right?
Yeah, I think I have to complete it. I agree.
I think you. The Bone trilogy. See, I'm not even as sharp. Anyway, Leave No Trace is the name of the film, and it is going to have its premiere theatrically on June 29th in New York. And I don't know, we don't have to. I'll mention the theaters when I post the show, so get more specific about.
Yes.
Are you gonna be at both coasts that weekend doing some Q&As?
Well, it's going to be New York and Portland.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your West Coast.
Yes.
It's not LA, but Portland.
Correct,
I'm
yes,
glad you
yes,
corrected me. Thank
yes.
you for that.
Yeah, so and Portland's where the crew is, so we need to be with them. They haven't seen the film yet, and they haven't seen it projected, so we want to be with them and be together as a group that co-creators, and so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear if Ben's going to be doing this. I'm hoping to. He's coming in like a few days before the theatrical into New York. I understand, so I've been trying to bribe him. Here's a link to my Vera Farmiga conversation. Here's one with. I don't know. I'm doing my best to get him on the show.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed his work for many years.
Oh, well, he likes to converse and whatnot. I don't know how much he loves to. I mean, I think sometimes maybe he can be a little wants to be quiet or something.
I get that.
Pull back.
I understand.
Yeah.
There are a lot of actors, I find, especially male actors, and this is a generalization, so forgive me, but I do find that there is a caution in a way, wanting to kind of keep a lot of stuff and
lure.
Yeah, well, that too, but also there's something I think a little beyond that too, where it's like the idea of giving up this stuff that they kind of is fermenting and their processes, their thoughts. It's like if they let it out somehow.
No, it's true. Male genius is very fragile, and it's you have to keep it very close to the inside, sealed
experience.
up. Yeah.
And so I talked to other people about them. Debra Granik, thank you very much. I hope we can do this again. This was.
Well, I have to make another film, don't I? I'm trying as hard as I can. I'm going to finish this documentary,
Is
and
this
then
a feature, I assume?
A feature documentary.
Okay.
Yes, and then on the heels of that, hopefully finish the other fiction. So it'll be always maybe they come in pairs now.
Well,
doc and fiction, because they complement each other so importantly.
Oh, sure. Why draw a distinction? It's all storytelling at the end of the day,
yes.
right?
Well, thank you for that. I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah, thank you too.